¿qué tal? Bienvenidos a este espacio de comunicación que es el Seminario para la Comunicación Global. Este espacio es producido por el Cuerpo de Investigación en Comunicación, Educación y Tecnologías de la Facultad de Ciencias de la Comunicación de la Universidad Autónoma de San Luis Potosí. En esta ocasión trataremos el tema de la investigación-creación, un tema de gran auge en el campo de la creación de contenidos. Hoy tenemos el gran honor de contar con la participación de Martin Fabian. Él practica esgrima histórica desde 2013. En 2006 enfocó su atención en el estudio de obras medievales y renacentistas relacionadas con la esgrima, el combate y temas afines. Ha realizado varias traducciones, transcripciones y ha escrito numerosos artículos en revistas y portales, tanto nacionales como internacionales. Como instructor internacional, ha enseñado esgrima en más de 20 países. Participa regularmente en torneos de esgrima, en los cuales ha obtenido numerosos premios, manteniéndose a lo largo del tiempo como dentro del top 10 de los ratings del HEMA y ha alcanzado el puesto número 1 en el mundo de 2018. Martín es fundador del gremio de esgrima de Bratislava, de la Federación Eslovaca de HEMA de la FEBUS y tiene un título en pedagogía otorgada por el Magisterium Schule. También es fundador del SCG Forge, uno de los principales fabricantes de espadas y otros equipos para la HEMA. También contamos con la presencia de la doctora Raquel Espinosa Castañeda. Ella es licenciada en Ciencias de la Comunicación por la Universidad de las Américas Puebla, con una maestría en producción y dirección de cine por el Edinburgh College of Art y un doctorado en educación por el Centro de Altos Estudios Pedagógicos de San Luis. Su trayectoria profesional se ha desarrollado desde una perspectiva de investigación-creación, articulando la producción audiovisual con procesos educativos y sociales, especialmente en torno a la inclusión. A lo largo de su carrera, ha explorado la narración audiovisual como una herramienta para generar experiencias transformadoras, más allá de la mera obtención de resultados. Un momento clave en su formación ocurrió durante sus estudios en el Reino Unido, cuando un encuentro con un joven ciego en Edimburgo dio origen al documental The Color of Black, How Does Blind People Dream, de 2004. Obra que ha sido exhibida en festivales internacionales y forma parte del acervo del Museo Interactivo Incluyente de la Producción Audiovisual, MIPAT. La doctora Espinosa ha sido reconocida nacional e internacionalmente por su compromiso con la inclusión, integrando la creación audiovisual con metodologías críticas y participativas, propias de la investigación-creación. Su trabajo abarca desde la producción de contenido hasta la construcción de espacios educativos inclusivos mediados por el lenguaje audiovisual. Martín Rodrigo Ríos Zapata es un apasionado de la enseñanza de las lenguas extranjeras y de las artes marciales históricas, con más de 15 años de trayectoria en la docencia, capacitación y dirección académica. Actualmente es coordinador del curso de cursos externos en la Alianza Francesa de San Luis Potosí, director de Co-Language Learning y docente de innovación tecnológica en la Facultad de Ciencias de la Comunicación de la Universidad Autónoma de San Luis Potosí. Su formación incluye una maestría en educación, con enfoque en enseñanza a distancia y estudios en lengua francesa aplicada en la Universidad Complutense de Madrid. Paralelamente a su labor académica, Martín es maestro de esgrima antigua, europea y japonesa. Esgrima con sable de luz, kendo, disciplinas donde se encuentra un puente entre culturas históricas, filosofía de vida, y su enfoque concreta la transmisión del conocimiento, la innovación, la pasión por las tradiciones marciales y el poder transformador de la educación, buscando siempre inspirar a otros a explorar el mundo con una mente abierta y un espíritu indómito. Omar Sáenz, antropólogo con experiencia docente y sólida formación en investigación histórica. Cuenta con una destacada trayectoria como deportista de alto rendimiento en tiro con arco y ha desarrollado estudios especializados sobre la construcción de corporalidades en esgrimistas con sable de luz. Apasionado por la historia y su enseñanza, combina su formación académica con habilidades pedagógicas para impartir clases dinámicas y centradas en el análisis crítico. Su experiencia en disciplinas marciales e interés por el contexto histórico-cultural le permiten ofrecer una perspectiva única, enriquecedora en la enseñanza de la historia inglesa. Y bueno, muchas gracias por estar con nosotros. Maestro Martín Fabian, gracias por compartir con nosotros esta charla que has titulado Explorando la esgrima histórica a través de la investigación-creación. Muchas gracias por compartir. Adelante, maestro.
Thank you for the invitation. I'm really happy to be here. All right, so just to introduce myself a little bit more, you already gave a very thorough introduction, and thank you very much. I think I understood most of it with my slight knowledge of Spanish. My name is Martin Fabian. I've been fencing for more than 23 years now. Perform fencing, of course, I mean the kind of esgrima, which we call the historical fencing, so something which was done by our ancestors 600 years ago, because, of course, all of the martial arts developed in some ways. For the last 15 years, I've been also participating in competitions and tournaments around the world. Also, I coincidentally competed in Mexico 3 times already, in Toluca, near Mexico City. And for 6 years now, I've started a company which also produces swords for historical European martial arts. So I could say that my life is intertwined completely with fencing. So I wake up, it's swords, I go to sleep, it's swords, and even now it's swords.
Excellent. Thank you, Martin Fabian. It's very interesting what you are telling us, and it's a true pleasure to welcome you to visit this virtual space, which we consider your home today. La Facultad de Ciencias de la Comunicación of the Universidad Autónoma de San Luis Potosí. On behalf of our university authorities, our faculty, our students, and the members at the ESET Academic Research Group, we are honored to have you with us and extend you a warmest welcome. I was reading your book, and it's very interesting. Your work stands at the intersection of the physical practice and the intellectual inquiry. In your book called Facebook Fabian, this connection is it's central in the part that says you hold a sword in one hand and a book in the other. I really like that. As both as practitioner and as a researcher, how do practicing and acquiring knowledge fit each other in your practice? Yeah, I mean, in what ways does hand-on practice become a source of knowledge when the body and the act of researching and reading work together?
So I will tell you very briefly how this whole thing started, because, in Europe, the tradition of fencing, we call it like reenactment or stage combat, is like very much intertwined with the culture. So, for instance, if it's the weekend and if you go to a castle somewhere outside of the city, you will probably meet some people doing some kind of reenactment of historical fencing. However, more or less it was like a romantic thing, which wasn't really based upon anything. But in the year 2007, the European Union started digitization of all historical archives en masse. So it means that every country, every archive, every bookstore was supposed to digitize all the old works to preserve them for future generations. What that meant for us fencers was that immediately, or all of a sudden, we were able to discover dozens and dozens, if not even hundreds, of different manuscripts and prints which deal with historical fencing. So all of a sudden, I could just go and open at my home a book where a person, a historical fencing master from 600 years ago, was speaking to us in their own language. Of course, let's say some old German, which was like back in the time a bit difficult for me to understand. And they were telling us about the fighting, about martial arts, about how to move, how everything works. Okay, but except of these stage combat, or except of reenactment and some experience, we didn't have a lot of things of how to understand what they meant, because they used so many different and foreign and strange terms. They say like, here you need to use a wrath cut, here you need to use a crooked cut, and etc., etc. So what you said and the quote that you quoted is very true, because all of the fencing or all of the esgrima, hima that we do nowadays wouldn't exist without some people. And of course, it wasn't just me, it was hundreds of people around the globe who, thanks to the internet, communicated together and held literally a book in one hand, reading the instructions from people who are long time dead, and with a sword, and trying to figure out like if we know how a certain movement is performed. Okay, so so it took us many years until we could finally say with some confidence that we were fully able to comprehend what those people were telling us, because now, after all those years of trying, we do have finally the practical knowledge that we can fully understand what people meant. So it's kind of, with the book in one hand, we were resurrecting a long dead martial art.
That's very interesting. As an international instructor, you've worked with very diverse communities, as you mentioned. I'm curious about how a practice like historical fencing transforms when rooted in different cultural contexts. In that sense, I would like to know, what differences have you observed in how historical fencing is taught, interpreted, or experienced across the countries? How does local culture shape the way people engage with historical knowledge?
I would say that, again, I would just reiterate what I said before, is it's very important that here in Europe, everything is connected. Okay, so for me, like fencing and history, I can see it around every corner. I just look outside of my window when I can see a castle, and that forms my opinion, it forms my education, and it forms my perception of the world. So I would say that things that the old masters who were living in the same countries, in the same lands as we do, the things that they describe are very close to us, and we can feel and we can understand the way of their thinking, the things that they meant, a bit easier. Okay, but there is another specific which I think is very important, and it is that a lot of the groundwork about like fencing and reconstruction was done before internet was like super widespread and available, and before people were able to exchange ideas. So back from the days of, I don't know, 1990s or the early 2000s, there were a few people in different like countries who had a particular interpretation of things of a certain movement. And even nowadays, we can easily track in different cultures, like how certain ideas are going in their own way. Okay, so for instance, if I see someone fencing in Mexico, I will know that probably they were influenced by people who started to do these things some time ago in Texas, because the ways are similar. But I wouldn't really say that there are big physical differences. It's mostly about small differences in interpretation, which are of course native to everyone, because if somebody reads a particular text, they will always have a slightly different idea about the meaning. But this is again something which enriches us the most, this exchange, when we compare these different ideas together.
In your career, seems to weigh researching, teaching, writing, and physical practice into the single thread. Is there a particular project, perhaps a research experience or a teaching journey, where you felt the connection between practice and intellectual creation most strongly?
So it may sound a bit weird when we're talking about fencing, but I would say that fencing is almost like playing chess. Fencing is a very intellectual sport, endeavor, martial art, whichever name you use for it, I think it will be all right. But when I say intellectual, I mean, of course, you need to understand of how to perform certain physical feats. You need to practice it a lot, because it doesn't work like you just go into a gym, perform a specific technique, and suddenly you know it. You need to do it for years and years in order to automatize the movement which is in you. But the better you get, the more intellectual it becomes. And I think for me, the biggest eureka moment was when we started understanding the little things about tactics and strategy, the things that matter the most, which were eluding us in the beginning, because we, as any scholar, if you're 10 years old and you have a obligatory or compulsory reading in school, and you have to read, I don't know, A Catcher in the Rye or some other classical work, your teacher will tell you about the motives that are hidden in there. But it is when you finally grow up, when you experience certain things for yourself, then you will be able to fully comprehend the meaning which is hidden in that literature. So for me, nowadays, after 20 or 15 or 20 years of competing and of practicing this almost like full time, when I read a historical fencing book, I can really understand and dissect the mind of someone who was living 600 years ago, which I think is an absolutely precious thing, to be able to enter their psyche, like to go there as a thief of ideas, and to fully understand those people, to understand their temperament, because of course everybody, the way how we perform fencing, the way how we do things, also is a reflection of our mentality, of the way of how we think. So for me, it's almost every day being able to access the minds of people who are no longer with us, but who live forever through their work with us.
In that sense, and to finish my intervention, many artistic and educational fields today are seeking to connect with the body, with craft and with history. From your perspective, From your perspective, what can historical fencing contribute to those spaces? What does it offer to contemporary ways of learning, creating, and researching?
I think historical fencing could offer exactly the connection between practice and theory, because I don't really think it's difficult to interpret. There are so many perfect translations, so many good books where you can just take a historical text into your hand. And I think that within a few days, you could, any student of an art who has a basic understanding of text could interpret fencing into physical reality. Okay, so it's because what we do is basically experimental archaeology, and we are learning to work with the meaning of text, okay, which is I don't know how about Mexico, but at least in Slovakia, young students have more and more problems with understanding written text and connections. So I think these things which do connect your body and the text could really help you to unlock also different areas in life, because it's not just about this, it's just about figuring out the connection between written and performance. And what is most interesting or most important is that fencing is a lot of fun. So it means that it could engage everybody in ways they do not expect. I mean, it allows you to beat your friends for fun, and they will be happy about this.
Thank you so much. This is my end of the intervention, but I also want to thank you for sharing all your knowledge in this book, which I read, and it's really amazing. I didn't knew about this universe, and thank you so much.
Very much. Okay. So this is actually a question for which all of us are solving right now, because HEMA and the stuff that we do is very young, and there are just a few similar things like it. So more or less, we are in the process of building the whole pedagogy and the whole didactic. So right now, even the book I wrote is part of the movement to lay out the groundwork for effective pedagogy and didactics in fencing. I've read a few books. I made a systematic approach in my mind of how to teach people how to perform fencing, and then we started in a certain way. We were trying to recreate those techniques in a form A-B, meaning as old masters intended. They say if student performs A, the other student performs B, which is kind of nice. But what we learned in the years is that we have to create a very different pedagogy, because despite the historical books being rich in content, they lack this. Okay, the mind of a medieval person was very different to mind of people nowadays. Of course, they were thirsty and stuff, but they had a very different framing in the world, and didactics were really young back then. So my experimental group, where I test these ideas, allows me to find optimal ways of how to teach a certain movement. And I think this is like the main goal for everyone, because a good teacher is, or currently someone who is considered being a good teacher, is someone who uses better and more optimized methods of teaching a certain approach. Okay, and we get all sorts of different people who practice HEMA in our clubs, but eventually we learn that things are universal, and you don't really need to have like a very specific, extremely individual approach. I mean, for the basic physical feats, except strategy and tactics, which is again connected to the temperament of the student. But in general, there are many functional methods that we can use in order to maximize the profit. And when we say maximize the profit, we mean effective teaching tools and skills for students. So I think fencing is, like I said before, fencing is an intellectual sport. It's also a competitive sport. That means that it steers competition, steers creativity, and it boosts confidence of everyone. It teaches people of how to analyze and react very quickly, because everything what happens in fencing happens in fractions of seconds. Okay, when we talk about the fastest attacks, it can be 0.2 seconds where somebody has to make a decision, which is either taught or improvised, but it's something which helps to steer your mind in a certain way. And this will certainly help kids, students, and adults alike to make fasting-like decisions, to be able to analyze and spot everything. So if somebody is good in fencing, it will also help their debate skills, because a debate that you have with someone, a dialogue, uses similar strategies, similar or stratagems as fencing. It's always about the same, trying to put your ideas somehow, trying to understand what your opponent is doing, etc., etc. And last but not the least, it's a very good physical exercise. And I think that for most people, it will be more interesting than football, for instance. Don't crucify me for this, but I think that if we offered swords to young students in schools instead of footballs, I think everybody would be happy to be able to fence with their friends and to bash them on their head or somewhere.
Okay, that sounds great.
Okay, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, all right. I'll try to be very clear about it. First of all, great outfit. I like your shirt, but
do you think that in particular Hime constructs your body on a certain way that could be differentiated from other sports? Since in Hime we have a sword that it's kind of an addition to our body.
Okay, thank you. Now I understood. The thing is, there is, fencing in a way just slightly adjusts your body to different motion, but the motion is still quite natural. Okay, so in fencing we're not doing like very weird positions or movements. It's usually we're doing relatively natural stuff, just extending our arms and trying to stand like clearly in a certain way. And even though everybody is a bit different and everybody has slightly different body, there are just so many ways of how to do a certain movement. So it means fencing is not exactly like divergent, but the more you're trying to optimize a certain set of movements, the more convergent it is. So it means that it converges to a singular point of where your body aligns in a specific way, which is the most useful for that particular technique, attack or defense or whatever. So I would say that we are using both a natural movement and when performing fencing, your body, and even if 10 people around the world started to practice fencing independently, and I mean if there was someone in Mexico, in the United States, in Slovakia, China, whatever, and even if they didn't know about each other, but if they had the same source from which they study, and if they would really do the study well, all of them in the end would have like a very, very similar, if not identical movement, because the body can move in just so many different ways, and the sword also influences the body that it moves in so many different ways.
Thank you. Another question, like keeping up with this line of the body. So what are your thoughts on the idea of the body as an archive? Like, can the body remember like this kind of historical movements in a certain way?
I think it absolutely can. There is a thing that we call a muscle memory, and more or less the whole point of practice is to prepare your mind and your body to automatize as many things as you can. The time span that I was talking about a while ago is real. So it means that with the fastest people, the movements and attacks that happen in approximately 0.2 to 0.3 seconds. Okay, the closer two people are together in a fight, the faster this time becomes, but not in a physical reality, because of course there is a physical limit to how a body can move, but in a perceivable reality. So that means that we humans are very bad at noticing small movements. Okay, so if there is like a snake going here, and if it goes like this, like a very small movement, you can barely notice it. But if there's like something going out like this, then you can of course see that I'm moving. Okay, so in fencing, when we optimize the smallest movement to performing like this, and the closer we are, the faster it happens. So what we need is this bodily archive. We need to have like a plethora of things which are completely automatized in what we do, and when the body is trying to figure out how the future will look like, of course, because it is thinking for us. So from a certain point, we get into a thing that we call a flow, which happens in many different arts. It's not just fencing, but also other performative arts. When we get into the flow, when your body is thinking for you, when the whole thinking and understanding of reality happens on a sort of subconscious level, where the body performs everything for you, and that would not be possible without your body being an archive, or without having your things set in your muscle memory, where you just, as the old masters say in the old books, you trust your sword, you believe in God, and you just go and do the thing.
Okay, thank you. Finally, I would like to ask you about a certain manner, because I believe when we study things like HEMA, we change our bodies, and also our bodies change the way we study or sports, or how we do the sports in general. So my final question is, with all this knowledge, with all this, give me a second so I can correct the audio.
He lived approximately 500 years ago, and he's quite a famous samurai. And in his book, which is called Gori no Sho, he said the following quote. He said, once you defeat one enemy, you can defeat a million. Once you master one thing, you already know the path towards mastering a different thing. Okay, so besides things that fencing offers you, like the reflexes and the ability to assess information very quickly, also if you do fencing, or let's say any other art, because of course it's not limited to fencing, and if you master that art, meaning you become really good at it, you know the way of how to become a master. Okay, because playing guitar or doing fencing is related in the way of how much time you need to spend with it and how to concentrate on learning the thing. Okay, so it teaches you patience, it teaches you uh, it teaches you how to walk the path toward mastery in general. So I think fencing is maybe different from other activities, and also similar to many other martial arts, in a way that it's competitive. So it means you can of course move the sword just by yourself in your garden doing some moving drills, but to be good in fencing, you need to learn to best your partner. You need to learn how to defeat them, how to outsmart them, how to work with feinting, with faking, how to work with resolution. Okay, and all of these things, they will translate. They will translate to your everyday life, and sometimes even to physicality. So for instance, one of my hands is definitely a few centimeters longer than the other, because it's all the time, trying to reach your opponent. All right, but that's a completely different story.
Thanks a lot.
Muchas gracias, Martín Fabian, a Martín Ríos, Raquel Espinosa y Omar Sáenz, por haber hecho posible esta charla de gran generosidad para hablar de este fenómeno de la investigación, que es la investigación-creación. Muchas gracias por la generosidad de haber compartido sus conocimientos y experiencias con nosotros. Gracias por haber hecho posible este espacio, que es el Seminario para la Comunicación Global, dentro del Cuerpo Académico en Comunicación, Educación y Tecnologías de la Facultad de Ciencias de la Comunicación de la Universidad Autónoma de San Luis Potosí. Los esperamos en una siguiente emisión.
Thank you very much for the invitation and for organizing this lecture or lesson. So my warmest greetings to University of San Luis Potosí. I hope that one day I will be able to visit in person, because I love Mexico. And if you're more interested in fencing, like I said, there are so many different sources on YouTube. But if you want to look for my videos or for my channel, you can just search for my name, Martin Fabian HEMA, and I'm sure you will find my channel and all the possible content.